Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, August 16th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, today, the day following the Assumption, there are a number of feasts. We start off with the indications of the Abbot Orsini, who tells us they celebrate Madonna della Trapani in Sicily, Italy. And he also says in a note, on this day the sepulchre of Our Lady was opened, and in proof that the Blessed Virgin was already assumed into heaven, nothing was found but her winding sheet, which gave a delicious perfume. Okay. But Our Lady of Trapani, again, I'm not sure why the Abbot Orsini says it's celebrated on this day, but multiple sources say today is the feast day. I can't find anything related to the date of August 16th, but that's okay. The story is really interesting, actually, because this image is found in a small chapel of the shrine of Our Lady of the Annunciation in Trapani in Sicilia, which is some 45 miles to the west of Palermo. So there's a bunch of different stories about why this is such an important thing and why she's ended up there in Trapani. So according to one story, the image probably goes back to the year 733. And it was a sculpture that was made on the island of Cyprus. It was put in the church of Famagusta, where that little church became the center of devotion to Our Lady for about 400 years. Then, in the year 1113, during the reign of Baldwin, the king of the Crusade region in Jerusalem, he moved to Jerusalem. He established in Jerusalem the Templars. So around 1130, a group of soldiers and noblemen in Cyprus who were going on the Crusades decided that they would join the Templars, and so they left immediately for Jerusalem. And with them, this noble group of Cyprian nobility, they took with them this image of Our Lady with Child, right, this little statue. And so this statue, seems to have remained in Jerusalem for almost 150 years. Then, after the Seventh Crusade failed, one of these Templar knights decided to go back to Italy, bringing the image with him, right? Probably concerned that it would be profaned by the Turks. During the trip, the ship ran into a huge storm that was very, very bad. However, this knight wasn't worried. He prayed to Our Lady and solemnly promised that if he survived the storm, he would entrust the image to the first land that they touched. And so the storm wound down, and they landed in Trapani in Sicily, right? And so that is why, obviously, there's the shrine in Trapani. That's where he left the statue. And as word spread of the miraculous saving of the ship, the townspeople immediately decided we've got to build a church, right? So the church was finished around 1332, and then it was rebuilt in 1760. Likewise, we have a very interesting devotion in Ocaña, Norte de Santander, in Colombia, where they celebrate Nuestra Señora de las Gracias de Tocoroma, Our Lady of Graces of Tocoroma, sometimes also called the Virgin of Tocoroma, or La Virgen Morena de Ocaña, right? So this is the day when people in the highlands of northeastern Colombia celebrate Our Lady of Graces, right? This image appeared some 300 years ago beneath the bark of a tree. Now, again, there's different stories about how this image appeared, like exactly what was the story about it. The first edition of this story was published in 1742. There's another one that comes up in 1788. But essentially, it says that in 1709, Cristobal Melo, he was a guy who had a sugar mill and a small farm, and he worked with his grown son. He went up to look for wood that he needed to carve something. And so he found a tree, and so so he found this tree. They cut it down, and then after they cut it down, they realized it wasn't actually big enough for what they needed to do. And so what happened? Well, then a year later, he came back and said, well, actually, we can just use that tree, whatever. So when he returned, the first thing they did was they chopped the bark off. And as they did, as they lifted this bark, Cristobal noticed that there was an image of Our Lady in the form and dress of the Immaculate Conception, right? And so they said, oh, wow. So they took the image back to their house, and then it became like a source of veneration, right? And he called the priests nearby. And in the later story, he has two sons. He sends two sons, now there's two of them, into the forest where they found a tree that has this very, very beautiful smell, right? Even though it's not the time for this thing to flourish, right? So what they do is they chop it down, but they can't get it away from the cliff, so they go tell their father, and they find Our Lady's image, which radiates light and fragrance. Okay, so be that as it may, it's essentially an image that's under the bark. It's already carved in the tree, right? So they built a big shrine there, and the bark image was left there. And the mountain shrine is also known for its spring waters, which supposedly has curative powers. It's called Agua de la Virgen, Our Lady's water. So again, the original title was Nuestra Señora de la Concepción, and they used to celebrate Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception December 8th as the major feast day. But in 1609, Pope St. Pius X authorized a mass proper to Our Lady of Graces of Tocoroma. And August 16th, 1711 has traditionally been commemorated as the day when the image was found, right? That's what they say, but again, historians say now, based on what they understand, that's probably the day the image was enshrined, right? So that's a very interesting thing. Again, that's why they celebrate the day. And on the triennial celebration, so August 16th, 2011, there was a shower of flowers and a pontifical coronation of the image, and the feast itself is very big for the town. Lastly, they also celebrate in Italy Madonna della Misericordia, Our Lady of Mercy, in Macerata. So this like the primitive church, they say like the first little chapel, dates back to August 16th, 1447, when the town made a vow to build this little church to beg for the end of the deaths that the plague was causing, right? And so they rebuilt the church in 1497, so it was somewhat bigger. That's 50 years later. And then later they enshrined, a few years later, the shrine of an image of Our Lady of Mercy and Saint Sebastian, Saint Rocco, Andrea, Andrew, and Julian, right? Which is, according to reports, still in the shrine today. So that's what we're celebrating today in the Marian world on August 16th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we will read the third point of Meditation 65. If you recall, Meditation 65 is about the meeting with Jesus. And our last point is entitled, simply that, the meeting between Jesus and Mary. Watch in silence this striking incident. No words can depict it. Let your heart speak and feel whatever it is capable of. Try to gauge the longing of that mother who wants to get close to her son. She wants to exchange a glance, possibly one word, one token of love, one motherly touch. And so there, in the middle of the street of sorrows, she meets him, stretches her arms out to him, would like to snatch him from them if it were possible, and take him home. Jesus lifts his eyes and sees his mother. Their eyes meet. What a lot of things would they tell? How well they understand each other. Both hearts can penetrate each other and feel their sufferings increased at the sight of each other's sufferings. She knew it all in advance, but she would not avoid that meeting. Perhaps she did not expect to find her son so terribly disfigured. What would be her sorrow on seeing that divine face so hideously ill-treated, beaten, swollen, and abused? Only she, with her eyes of mother, could make him out. Learn generosity from Mary's decision to meet Jesus, in spite of the pain that would be caused her. Do you also not hesitate to go out to the encounter of sorrow and trial? For there you will inevitably meet Jesus.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.